Part 161. A Hypocrite's Demise. Within a month of the Prophet's return to Medina, Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul fell sick and was nearing his death. The head of the hypocrites consistently opposed the Prophet and was a constant thorn in his side. As the most senior tribesman in Medina when the Prophet emigrated, he had the most to lose in the creation of an Islamic state, and his resentment never subdued. His offenses were numerous. He abandoned the Muslims at Uhud, returning home with over one-third of the army. He supported the Banu Nadir against the Muslims. He threatened to expel the Muslims from Medina. And worst of all, he spread the egregious slander against the mother of the believers, Aisha. The companions urged the Prophet to execute him for his crimes on more than one occasion, but the Prophet responded, "I do not want the people to say, 'Muhammad kills his own companions.'" On his deathbed, Abdullah ibn Ubay begged the Prophet to visit him and pray for his salvation. In a twisted understanding of faith, he believed that the Prophet's prayers could benefit him. Yet that did not prevent him from treating the Prophet with contempt and disrespect throughout his time in Medina. An uncanny parallel can be made with Iblis. An element of belief was present in both, but their kufr is derived from their disobedience and arrogance. As already mentioned, Iblis believed in Allah but was labeled a disbeliever because he refused and acted arrogantly. Surah 2, verse 34. Similarly, Allah declares the hypocrites to be the lowest of all humankind.
Surely the hypocrites will be in the lowest depths of the fire, and you will never find for them any helper. Surah 4, verse 145.
As per his gentle nature, the Prophet was willing to visit Abdullah ibn Ubay and pray for him. Umar ibn al-Hattab protested,
"O Messenger of Allah, will you visit him when he is an enemy of Allah?"
The Prophet replied, "I hope that through him Allah will cause 1,000 more to embrace Islam." Abdullah ibn Ubay did not have 1,000 followers, but the Prophet's statement was a figure of speech expressing his intent of swaying the hearts and minds of those with weak faith who may look up to Abdullah ibn Ubay. The Prophet did not defend Abdullah ibn Ubay but rather had da'wah in mind. Abdullah ibn Ubay even asked to use the Prophet's shirt as a kafan, cloth for shrouding, and the Prophet obliged. Abdullah ibn Ubay's son, also called Abdullah, then asked the Prophet to lead his funeral prayer, and the Prophet again obliged. Umar once again protested, this time holding on to the Prophet's shirt.
"O Messenger of Allah, will you pray for him after he has done such and such?"
Umar began listing Abdullah ibn Ubay's long list of crimes, then continued,
"And even when Allah has prohibited you from praying for the hypocrites?"
Umar was referring to the verse,
"It does not matter whether you pray for their forgiveness or do not pray for their forgiveness. Even if you pray for their forgiveness 70 times, Allah will never forgive them. That is because they have lost faith in Allah and His Messenger. And Allah does not guide the rebellious people." Surah 9, verse 80.
The Prophet replied, "Rather, Allah has given me a choice, and I have chosen to ask." The Prophet then repeated the above-mentioned verse, "Pray for their forgiveness, or do not pray for their forgiveness." The Prophet then said, "If I knew that asking for forgiveness more than 70 times would have forgiven them, I would have done so." This event showcases the companions' confidence to question the Prophet, which was a direct result of their nearness to him. More importantly, it demonstrates the Prophet's proclivity for forgiveness, as evidenced throughout the Seerah. The Prophet was cognizant of the reality of hell, and he did not wish it upon anyone who did not outwardly oppose Allah. The Prophet did not only lead Abdullah ibn Ubay's funeral prayer, he climbed into the grave and placed his corpse into its place, and then made a long dua as per his custom. However, Allah then revealed,
"And do not ever offer funeral prayers for any of their dead, nor stand by their grave, for they have lost faith in Allah and His Messenger and died rebellious." Surah 9, verse 84.